In this video, we're going to be discussing prompt chaining. Prompt chaining. Now, things are easier to understand with an example. So let us start with an example. Let's assume that you want to send an email. You want to use an LLM to send an email, or you just want to send an email. Let us look at what that would take. So first, you need to draft the email. Then you need to, for good measure, review the email. You need to review the email. And then, if everything looks good, you want to send the email. Send the email. This was a goal. The goal was to send an email. And what did we just do? We broke it down into steps or subtasks. Draft the email, review the email, send the email. And these are tasks that we will do one after the other. So we will do them sequentially. Yeah, we'll do them sequentially. We'll draft the email. After drafting the email, we send it for review. And then, once it looks good, we send the email. This is a typical problem best suited for a prompt chaining workflow. Yeah, a sequence of steps where one step performs a task, passes its result to the next task, and that one also does its job, passes its result to the next task. And it goes on sequentially like that until the final output is achieved. That is prompt chaining. That's prompt chaining. That's how prompt chaining works. It's basically a sequential pipeline of operations and transformations. You have the input going, and you have an output coming out. Simple and straightforward. I think I changed the arrow type at some point. Yeah. So simple and straightforward. You have input and you have your output after following a series of steps. And each of these guys can be self-contained with a prompt that defines the instruction to be done. If you need to perform some actions, you probably need tools. For example, when you need to send the email, you probably need it. You would need a tool for that. Not probably. You will need a tool for that. Probably like a send grid service. You send to the send grid API and it sends your tool for you. And you also need an LLM to facilitate all that. So you need an LLM. So let's say this first. Let me put the three of them together first, and so I can copy them together. So let's say this first step, which is drafting the email, you need a prompt. The prompt will take in sender email, instruction, what you want to send the email about. Then, using that prompt, the LLM is going to draft an email. Then you send it to reviewing of email. That one would also use a prompt that will give it instructions to evaluate the email by, and probably we draft the email. So it will highlight or identify some issues with the email and refine the email. So it does that. An LLM can do all that. Then finally, you send the email. You probably want to use a prompt to pass instructions also. An LLM is going to do the processing, and a tool is going to send the email. Get rid of these tools. And the tool is going to send the emails. So you have those work components working together in each step, working together to define each step. In LangGraph, that would be a node. These are nodes. Draft email node, review email node, send email node. And with that, you can fire up the process with an input. It goes through the defined processes, and this can be more than 3, it can be 4, it can be 5. It goes through, and at the end of the day, you get an output. That's prompt chaining. That's basically prompt chaining. Prompts and LLMs defining work, the work taking place sequentially, subtasks doing their job, and producing a final result. The output of a particular step becomes the input into the next step. And if there's any error, that particular step can undo it. You can even use retry policies, line graph retry policies to undo some of the errors that is taking place in your steps. So that's prompt training. So what are the advantages of using this type of workflow? So first, you get to break down complex tasks. You are able to break down complex tasks. No matter how complicated the tasks are, as long as you can break it down, prompt training works fine. So you decompose it. You could decompose a large task, complicated problems into small manageable steps. Another thing is that it helps you to improve the accuracy of the entire process. So with each step, you can focus on a single goal, a well-defined task, and you can manage errors within each step. You can also have verification in each step. You can have verification, you can have validation before proceeding to the next step. It also helps to modularize your operations, which is always a good thing. And also, there's transparency because you can view what is going on at each step. And sometimes you can even use different LLMs for each step based on the strengths of the LLMs. For example, to send the email, you don't need a powerful LLM, but to draft the email, you might want to get a thinking LLM. So yeah, those are the advantages. Let us look at use cases. Let me start writing some things on the screen so that you know that I'm still alive here. So let's look at some use cases. First, we have generation and quality control. Processes requiring generation of content and quality control. So for that, you can have different steps. Let's say step 1 generates the initial draft based on requirements that you have specified in your prompt. Then you have another step, which is the second step, that checks for factual accuracy, checks for consistency, tone, and all that. Then you have a third step that takes those recommendations, improves clarity, readability, and all that. Then the final step will format the content for the targeted platform. You can be targeting a blog, you can be targeting email, you can be targeting a social media platform. So the final step can just help you format it to the destination it needs to go to. Another use case is a code review process. So in a code review process, you can also have different steps. For example, step 1 can analyze the code for bugs and errors. Then in step 2, you can check if the code adheres to your style guide and some syntax specifications like that is peculiar to your company. Also, you can have another step after that suggests improvements to the code, and a final step that generates documentation for the code. So these are just some of the use cases where you can use prompt chaining. But in our demo, we're going to be looking at a real life use case where prompt chaining is going to be the star of the show. So in this demo, we're going to be looking at how prompt chaining works. Let me create the file for that. That'll be 0206 prompt chaining. And the demo we're going to be running is going to be a content generation and quality control pipeline. A content generation and quality control pipeline. We get to generate content and we control the quality. So let me just put some string here, or a string here. So our task is to create a content generation pipeline with quality control. Content generation pipeline with quality control. Now we're going to be creating a prompt chain, and this prompt chain is going to take in a topic to write on and our quality requirements. It's going to take in, so let's say input, topic to write on, and quality requirements. And it's going to have 4 steps. The very first step is going to generate an initial draft. The second step will fact check the draft. The third step will improve the drafts based on recommendations from the previous step. And the final step will format or that's just a format for publication. Good. So we're going to have 4 steps in our prompt chain. We'll generate an initial draft, fact check the draft, definitely based on the quality requirements, improve the draft based on the recommendations from the fact checking step, and then format the output, the reviewed output, for publication. Let's begin. First, let us bring in our dependencies. So I'm just going to say from LangChain, OpenAI, import chat OpenAI. Let's fix this. Then we also need to get our graph components. So langgraph.graph. Import state graph. Start and end. Then, because we're going to need state, because we're building a graph, we're getting into the workflows right now. So we're building a graph. So we also need from typing import typedect. Import typedect. So yeah, those are the libraries we're going to need. The next thing we're going to do is create the state for our graph. So class content state. Going to pass in typedect. Typedect seems to be the most efficient way to represent your state in LangGraph. I think the new documentation even specifies something about creating state for, I think, LangChain agents. That's the create agent module in LangChain, and they recommend typedect. But yeah, we're using typedect. So let's continue. So first, we're going to have our topic, which is going to come in as an input. Our requirements is also going to come in as an input. We keep it simple for now as a string. And then we have the draft that we're floating around. We also have the results of our fact check. Results of our fact check. So fact check results, the improved version. Version and the final outputs. That's the one that is, or that has been formatted for our destination. So we have our states, keeping it simple with the data types. For now, let's initialize our LLM. Chat OpenAI model equals GPT-4o, which we'll probably be using throughout. So yeah, so we have this in place. Now, the first thing we need to do, or the next thing we need to do, is create our nodes. Each step in the prompt chain is going to be a node. Each step in our prompt chain is going to be a node. And we have 4 steps: the generation step, the fact-checking step, the improvement step, and the formatting step. So let us create those. First, we create, let me put a comment here and say define nodes. Good. Then here we can say define generate draft, say state, you have type content state, and it will also return the same. Let's have a comment here. Generate initial blog posts draft. And in here, we're going to have a prompt. Multi-line prompt. Or rather, we'll use a multi-line string for our prompt. And we're simply going to say, write a 200-word blog post about, then let us pick our topic from the state. So write a 200 blog post about that. Requirements, let me do this. Oh, okay. Requirements. Let's also get that from the state. requirements. Good. Then we give it some further instruction and say focus on creating engaging, informative content. Yeah. So that's our prompt. That's our prompt. Then we can generate the draft with our LLM. We can use our plain LLM here because we want the draft back as freeform text, so we don't need it structured. So we just pass the prompt here and get the content. So that will be our draft. And just so that we can see the flow of things, I'm going to add a print statement here. We're going to say dub. Step 1. Step 1 is for the draft. I'll say draft has been generated. So let us print a part of our draft. Let's say the first 150 characters. Let's tack on the new line there. Let's say, yeah, more to come. So after this, we can simply just return our draft into the state. So just going to say draft. So we update our state by returning our draft back into it. We have our step 1. That's the first step in our prompt chain. Now, I need to get out of this function. Come out of here. Okay. So now we have the first step. The next step is to fact check the draft. So let us write that too. Let's say define fact check. Okay, state means content state and returns content state. This is going to help us check for, or check draft for factual accuracy and consistency. Oh, I need to add more. Yeah. Okay, good. Now, I'm going to speed things up by just bringing the prompt in here. I'm just going to copy the prompt in here, then we can go through it instead of you watching me type the whole thing. So prompt copied. Boom. Now let's go through. Okay, I can put this aside. So this says review the following blog post draft for factual accuracy and consistency. So we get the draft that we've sent from here. And it says identify any factual claims that seem questionable, internal inconsistencies, statements that need citations, and provide a brief report. So that's good enough for us to review. So we're going to say fact check results equals LLM.invoke. As you can see, we're not calling any tools here. We're not augmenting the LLM for now. And even for the fact check results, we don't need a structured output, so we're good. As you can see, our state simply just uses strings throughout. But that doesn't mean that your own use case might not. So we're just trying to keep things simple here. So I'm also going to print the next step. Let me copy that statement from here. Yeah. So yeah. So this will be step 2. I'm going to say fact check complete. Fact check complete, and from the fact check results, we're also going to be displaying the first 150 characters. That's good. Finally, let us return that into state. Fact check results, the same name, fact check results key or channel, and send it into the state channel. So our next step is done. Now to our third step. And what are we doing in our third step? We're taking the recommendations that have been generated or the results of the fact check, and we're using it to, provide a new draft that is more refined. So let us do that. Define improve content state, content state. Get that all in here. Keep missing the dash. Okay. So here we want to revise content based on fact check. Based on fact check feedback. Yeah. Feedback. So we're also going to have a prompt here that I'm going to bring in. So prompt copied from the GitHub repo for the course, and boom. So this says here is a blog post draft. So we're giving it our draft again. And here is feedback from fact checking. We give it our fact check results. Revise the blog post to address the feedback while maintaining engaging writing. Keep it around 200 words. So this is going to take the results from our fact checking and improve our document. So we can say improved LLM.invoke prompt, get the content, and then I'm going to get my step print statements once again. It's always good to get feedback while the process is going on, so we see how each node is performing. So this will be step 3 now, and it will be content improved. Content improved, and we'll just keep doing the whole 150 thing. And we can return this. The key is improved content, so let's return it to that state channel. Say improved. Good. Get all that in place. And now we've completed 3 steps. Now we need the 4th step. The 4th step is going to help us format what we have gotten so far to the format for our destination. And you may have guessed, this is a blog post. So we probably need it to come out in something like Markdown or an HTML page. So let's start writing that. We call that define format output. State, content state, to capitalize S. And here, we want to format content, and we're going to be using HTML tags and elements. So we want this to go on a web page. We want it to be a direct web page. We can as well use Markdown and use some of these documentation generators for it, or probably we're preparing the README for a GitHub repo. So for those use cases, you want Markdown. But for this, we want to just output it as standard HTML. So we have a prompt also for this, and I'm going to be bringing it in from the GitHub repo for this course right now. So I'll paste in the prompt, and the prompt says format the following blog post for web publication. This is the improved content. That's what we want to send in, and we want it to add an engaging title wrapped in H1 tags, subheadings where appropriate with H2 tags, paragraphs definitely use the P tag, and we want a meta description, probably the meta tag of the ed tag. Then the output needs to be formatted as HTML because we just want to take the output and push it straight to our website. So we take this, then say final equals LLM.invoke. We pass it our prompt and get the content. Get that content. Then we need to print our step again. So let us go borrow those print statements once again. I'm going to come here. This time, okay, I'll put final. Oh, sorry. Final. This step 4. And what we're doing here is that we are formatting for publication. So say formatted for publication. So we'll take the final, and this time let's just do 200, just for whimsy. Now we can then return this into state. What's the state key for that? Final draft. So let's return that back into state as the final draft. Final. Good. So we have all our nodes. That is the exhaustive part of this demo. We have our node, and we can start building out our graph. So I'm just going to say builder equals state graph. So here we can just pass in content states. Next, let us add our nodes. Our nodes are going to have the same names as the functions. So to just make things fast, I'm just going to be passing the functions in. So we don't have to define two arguments. So add our nodes. Let me copy this. Let's replicate it 4 times or 3 times. Then this will be fact check, improve content, and format output. So nodes added. Now let us build the flow. This is where we're actually going to build the prompt chaining flow. So this is a very sequential flow. Doesn't have any branching or anything. It's just straightforward. So for that, we're going to say builder.add edge. So we go from the start node all the way to generate our draft. I'm just going to copy this. No, let's just continue. Builder.add edge. So from generating our draft, we then navigate to fact checking. This is our second step. So builder.add edge. From fact checking, we improve the content. Then from improving the content, we format for final output. And once we're done formatting, we can terminate the graph. So that's our flow. That's our prompt chaining flow. Now to call this graph, we need to compile it. So say graph equals builder.compile. We don't need to pass any arguments here. Later on in the state management, or should I say memory section, we're going to see how to pass checkpointers here for persistence. But for now, let's just continue. So we compile our graph, then we can execute it. So I'm just going to say result equals graph.invoke. Then we need 2 inputs. In our state, 2 of them are going to be required inputs. That will be topic and requirements. So let us come down here, say topic. I don't really write about the benefits of morning exercise, which I just started taking seriously. This is the first time I've been consistent over weeks. Yeah, so requirements. For requirements, I'm just going to say target audience should be busy professionals like moi. Yeah, busy professionals like me. And also include practical tips. Yeah, not gym bro stuff. I can't cope with that. So include practical tips, definitely for busy professionals and not people that have time to go to the gym all the time. So yeah, We have that, and now let us print our final results. So print. First, let's have a new line so that we know that our final results appears on a new line that has some space from the other print statements. Let's add some borders. Just going to take this. Then under here, we'll say final result. Let's have that all caps so that it can stand out well. For final result, and then we print another border just to make things look well demarcated. Another border, and then we can say print result. Then from the state, we can get final result, final output. Yeah, that's the name of the channel. So final output from the result. The result contains our end state. So yeah, final output or final draft? Final draft, not final output. Let's do this. Final draft. This final draft. Let me make sure that in our final draft. Yeah, so we need final draft, not final output. Okay. So we have written a lot of code. Now let us run it. We've built a chain with these 4 steps, connected them together with edges for our prompt chaining exercise, where we have our content generation with quality control. So let us run this. Say Python O2 workflows. So we're running O206. And let us hope we are all good without errors. Hit enter. It's going to start printing messages from each step as we have defined. So first we have draft generated. So generated a draft as step 1. Step 2, fact checking. So it's doing some factual claims. We truncated it so we're not seeing all of it. Then it's improving the content, and boom, we have an HTML output. So final result, we have our HTML output, which it is denoting here with markdown syntax. So we have the head is well formatted. We have the doc type. We have the HTML lang defined. That's the language, English. So we have the head. It gave us the meta description that we wanted. Incorporating morning exercise into your daily routine can enhance productivity and well-being for busy professionals. Learn the benefits and practical tips. And we go down here, it has titled it The Power of Morning Exercise for Busy Professionals. Interesting. So boosting productivity and well-being, the first sub-heading, increase energy and focus. Those should be benefits, right? Okay, yeah. Then enhancing mood and reducing stress. We have some practical tips here. So for practical implementation, consider quick options like 20-minute jog, yoga, and all that. So yeah, this is concise. This is very, very simple and straightforward. But what we've been able to see here is how to use prompt chaining to take a series of sequential steps that build off each other, and then we can connect them together to achieve a particular goal.